Welcome to The Trophy Life, the podcast that asks the question, aside from the awards and medals, what skills and benefits do participants gain from organized competition that offer them an advantage over those that sit on the sidelines? Today we welcome 2008 U.S. National Junior Champion Alexe Gilles. Alexe represented the U.S. 6 times as a junior, bringing back 2 silver and a gold in the Junior Grand Prix, also a bronze at the Junior Grand Prix final. She represented the U.S. 4 times at the Senior Grand Prix and at the ISU 4 Continents International Competition with a top 10 finish. Welcome, Alexe. How are you? Retired in 2014 and touring with
Disney on Ice
as
Queen Elsa
of Frozen.
Mm-hmm.
So how many times has someone asked you, do you want to build a snowman?
More times than you can think.
So take us back. What is the transition like? You are a competitive figure skater, one of the top 20 skaters in the world. And here you are transitioning into a professional career. Would you look in the want ads? Where do you find the jobs? How do you audition for them? Do you send in a resume? How does that work? Because I think a lot of young skaters are interested in that process, that transition process.
Mm-hmm. So when I finally realized that it was kind of time to retire, I still, love performing and still love skating, and I wanted to keep traveling. So my goal was looking into a show because that little bit in me was not done performing. Mm-hmm. So I looked into Disney, I looked into cruise ships, I've looked into Holiday, a couple of the shows, and nothing was really sparking my interest at first. Mm-hmm. And then my choreographer at the time, Katarina Lindgren, was like, oh, the casting director for Disney is coming this week. I think we should set up a meeting. And so we did that. And I was fortunate enough that Judy was in town and came to the World Arena and, sneaked across to the other skating side and saw me skate for about 20 minutes and, exchange emails and things like that. Mm-hmm. But the normal process is you send in an email and then you go and do a live audition and then you kind of wait. Right. You sit and you wait until something's open.
Right. You get the call back, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So mine kind of happened a little quicker. I still had a little mini callback and then, 6 weeks of waiting of, okay, if this happens, what do I need for the road? Mm-hmm. Okay, I need to know what my nutrition is going to be. I need to know how am I going to be able to work out and maintain my body shape while being on the road because you don't have your gym to go to or a car to drive you there. Right. So it's kind of an adjustment. And then it was finally the call back and I got it. And then it was like, okay, and you're leaving in a week. And I was like, okay, so my whole life changed in a second.
Wow. So did you see familiar faces? Because I know when I actually did get to see you perform when you were here in Pennsylvania, and I saw a few familiar faces in the cast. So how did you know before, or you just are surprised?
I think once your name is kind of thrown out there, people, they always talk. So somehow through the grapevine, someone who's done the road, who's done the show life. I knew Morgan Bell through, competitive competitions, but I didn't really know her. And then turns out we were going to be sisters and now we're friends for probably the rest of our lives. Right. One of the other Elsas was Becky Bearswell, who I had competed against since we were little girls. Mm-hmm. We only skated together for a short amount of time, but there are a few people that did go to the shows that I was thankful for because then I had friends on there instead of going in blind.
Right. So you could, and now how many years have you been with Disney?
I was with them for 6 years.
6 years. Now, where were you during the pandemic?
Oh gosh, I think we were in Mississippi, just south of Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay. And did they how did that happen? What was the news where they were, winding the tour down prematurely? How did that happen? Where did you get that news? And
so we were just about to open on like a Thursday night, and the news had been speculating and circulating, and nobody knew what this was.
Right.
So we kind of continued like we were going to do the show. And then all of a sudden the Mississippi governor announced that you can't have an audience size or a group gathering of more than 200 people. And we're like, well, we're performing to an arena. How is that going to happen?
Yes.
So 4 hours before the show, it's still open. Nothing's been happened. Nothing's been canceled. And then we get a group meeting from our company manager and was like, okay, for right now, we might be going to Florida because that's where we were going to next, and just taking 2 weeks and then go from there. And then, 30 minutes later, it was the whole rest of our 2-month tour was canceled. Everything was done. Boom. And then we had to load up and get flights and leave within 4 days because international borders were closing. So our international kids had to leave and get in before they closed their borders. Right. And, it was just like, okay, yay, like we're going to do a Disney show, into you're going home. We don't know for how long. This pandemic has changed everyone's life.
Right. Yeah. I was, I had kids scattered everywhere. My daughter was in France. So I do remember like, my son was in New York, and he's saying, it's very serious, Mom. This is you got to get her home from France. And I was saying to her, it's time to come home. She's like, it's fine here. Everything's fine. I'm in southern France. Everything's fine. And within a week, she was, I can't believe it. Yeah. So she got out on the last flight of France to the UK, because they were still allowing flights out of the UK. And then from the UK, I was able to get her home. So,
wow.
I know.
That's great. It's just, I know people that, got stuck over there. And, I feel bad for the cruise ships and the workers that got stuck on the cruise ships for how long?
Yes, for months. Yes. Yes.
So fortunately, I was home in the States and was able to fly home. Easy, no problem. The airport was still quite busy, no masks yet, but it was fine.
Right. So lucky, right? That you were able to. Now, a lot of those skills, a lot of those flexibility, that you have to have as a skater. Did you think that some of that training early on helped you during that crisis?
I think so. I mean, we started skating when I was 2.5 years old. Oh. And so from there, we would drive to Chicago to go skate. So we would have to be doing our homework in the car. And then once we finally moved to Colorado, it was still, okay, do your homework in the car, make sure your homework is done before you can skate and before you can go to competitions. And then you have to work out and you have to find time for balance. And, I'm from one of 5 kids as well. So,
right.
There's multiple schedules. There's, this person's going there, and you just have to be flexible.
And 3 skaters, is that right?
3 skaters, yes.
Okay, 3 skaters, and all not just skaters, but international level skaters. So it's, your house is a handful. So especially when you're teenagers, trying to balance all of that. So coming out when let's say that huge transition, when you're on tour and all of a sudden the tour just stops. Was there ever a competition? Because I do remember being at a competition once with Adam, and it was in Finlandia, and there was a fire. So the lights went out and the entire arena had to be evacuated. So did you ever have an episode like that where you were competing somewhere and it was just like completely, turned things upside down?
I can't say that I've had a competition where anything like that has happened. Right. I have done possibly shows where the compressors go out, you kind of have to wait. Actually, Broadmoor Open here in Colorado, so summer competition, the lightning. So the lightning would sometimes kill the power. Right. So then our events would be delayed. And then sometimes as a young kid, you're competing at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night when that's way past your bedtime.
Yeah. Yes.
But that was what you did because you wanted to compete. That's
right. And I think training and that kind of conditioning sets you up to be more resilient later in life, Now, when you were growing up, taking criticism, like when they do the critiques, those famous critiques at Champs Camp and all of this.
Yes.
Now, how old were you where you realized that feedback was for improvement and they weren't insults? Like where is the balance? Like for young skaters, where do you advise, that listening ear versus the filtered ear?
I think I was quite young, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. I I think juvenile when we were doing junior
Mm-hmm.
nationals and getting those small critiques, and I remember missing out on junior nationals by one placement because I stepped out of a double flip. My whole life
Mm-hmm.
was like, why didn't I make it? But Piper made it in dance, and but I learned that if you change this or if you change your program this way, then this will help you advance more.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you had the double axel, then this will help you advance even more. So,
Right.
I took them because I knew that was going to make me better.
Right.
But the older you get, the higher up in the competitions you go, the more critiques you get, the more
Mm-hmm.
it feels like they're attacking you. And really they're not, but they're trying to just get the best out of you and your
Right.
team. But it's still hard.
Yeah. It is hard, and it's hard to not take it personally. Where I
Mm-hmm.
think as you get older now as a professional, when you do a certain, I know in the show when I saw you, you kind of come up onto the higher stage and you do
Mm-hmm.
this little number and it gets a huge reaction. I'm sure in some cities, especially international cities, that particular scene might not have received the same reaction, but you're not taking that personally. So as you got older, you're able to process
Mm-hmm.
that it's not about me, it's about the situation and the circumstances. Yeah.
Right. And now I like thrive on it. I'm like, okay, if I don't have these criticisms, or what do I need to nitpick so that I can, do even more? But then it's like, okay, well, you have to remember this is real life and not
Yes.
everyone's going to be nitpicking everything and giving you criticism and feedback on every single thing you do. But I think that's hard because we're like, we want more.
Right. So you would say once you were like out of your teens that you were able to process that in a healthier way
I think it took me till after I was
after
done
competition? Yeah.
competing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you get to, once you hit that point where you're like, okay, it's time. It's
Mm-hmm.
not easy to give up something you've been doing your whole life and you love
Right.
competing, but your body's not accepting or performing how you want it to do, or
Right.
producing the triples and the new quads
Mm-hmm.
and triple axles and triple triples. So it's like,
Right.
and you're capable of it. That's the
Right.
thing. So I think it's taken time after and stepped away that it's kind of like, okay.
So you're able to transform,
Mm-hmm.
your skills from skating and process them and like synthesize something even greater, which
Yeah.
is performance all over the world. So
Mm-hmm.
tell me about some of the exciting places that you've been touring.
We first started in the States,
Okay.
in the United States. And, when Frozen came out, everywhere you
Yes.
went, it was just like screams and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
you just were like, holy moly, like chills. You would
Yeah.
get like backstage. They can just hear, the audience was here, Mickey and Minnie announcing that Frozen's going to happen. And it was like the whole world, like they were kind of sleeping till like, woo!
Yes.
But it was fun because internationally they reacted to different parts of
Mm-hmm.
the segment. So some parts everyone loves Olaf the snowman, but some parts like the funny parts or the Hans punch, or they like the kiss, or little things like that. Obviously, Let It Go was a major hit always.
Yes. Yes.
But it's
Yes.
funny things like that.
So, overseas, you did the U.S. and then you traveled overseas. Where do they have like the European 1 and European 2 tour? Like, how do they do that?
Yeah, they kind of have two markets for Europe. For Europe, they have South Africa, which was an amazing place to perform, and then I competed there too. And then Japan they loved their skating. And so it was fun to perform over there for, I think, 3 months.
Wow.
And yeah, so
So
I
you
know it
stayed
pretty
on
well.
in Japan for 3 months?
Hmm.
So did you must have traveled the entire country then?
Yeah, we started in Sendai and we went down to Tokyo and Fujiyama and Hiroshima and
Hmm.
Saitama. All over.
Osaka? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Nagoya, like,
Yeah.
so it was kind of cool just to see the whole countryside too.
Wow. Yeah, it is. It's so interesting to be in Asia because you definitely feel like you are not home. You can kind of fake it somewhere, but some places in Europe. But when you're in downtown Tokyo, you're not home. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is a different vibe. What was a place that you thought I definitely have to come back to?
Um, oh gosh. I think Japan I would definitely go back to.
Mhm.
I loved Ireland.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and I really liked Poland actually.
Yes. I was in
Um,
Slowpot up in Dansk, the northern part
yeah.
of Poland.
Hmm.
And I was there in December, so it was very like 3 o'clock, it was dark.
It was the Junior Grand Prix final.
Yes.
I was there.
Yeah, that's right. We were there together, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
But
forgot that
I
was your
went
year.
again. That was the first year. That was when it was like six American girls. It was Rachel,
Yes.
Mariah, and
And
Caroline,
it
all
was,
three blue dresses that won. And
yes.
I
And
had
it
the blue
was,
dress, but I wasn't.
and there were, they had 8 men back then. They had 8
Mhm.
finalists, right? And 6 of them were American.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, I think I would love to go back to Scandinavia in the summertime. Obviously, in the wintertime, it's very different. But
mhm.
France is lovely. But I've done Brazil twice.
No, okay, wait a second. You've been in South America as well.
Mhm.
So Brazil, where else?
Brazil, Peru, Panama. I think that's it.
Now,
Yeah.
when you are there, do you have enough time like to do Machu Picchu or like to do other things, or is your time that restricted?
We didn't get a chance to do Machu Picchu in Peru.
Hmm.
In Brazil, we did because we were there for 2 months the first time. We went down to the Iguazu Falls, which is
Hmm.
one of the seven natural wonders.
Right.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then we also climbed Mount Fuji when we were in Japan too.
Wow.
So we do sometimes have side trips that
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, these are the things that I don't think, as parents are helping their kids and investing in something like skating or gymnastics or something that requires such focused attention, in
Mhm.
training. There are shows like this after
Yeah.
competitive life that can be, people talk about gap years, or sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be a gap year. Sometimes it's, of self-awareness, and it turns into multiple years because with each year, I'm sure you learned something of value,
Yes.
wherever you went. Not only that, just the diversity that you're exposed to. Now, did any of your personal views change or your awareness change, or were you like in like anything shock you while you were like, I didn't even know this was happening? Like, because I know when I went to Romania once, I was just so shocked at some of the extreme poverty and driving up through the hills, and I mean, not that I've never seen poverty, but it was just like to see like old Navy bags as tarps and roofs for. I was just surprised that it was so close to like a metro, not a semi-metropolitan area. Like I just didn't like seeing the world opened my eyes because it wasn't just such an organized place. Like, oh, let's have a food drive. It was just a different. So, was there any place that you went to that was just shocking?
Yeah, I think because we traveled pretty well when we were younger, I had a little bit of an open mind. But also when I continued to travel, it expanded even more. And, you noticed how the Japanese are very clean and how they, follow strict rules and have lots of languages and how they live together. But then I wouldn't know that if I didn't stay there for that long.
Right.
Whereas in Brazil, Brazil's government and poverty it's very bad. And the range between high class and poverty it's a lot.
Yeah.
There's no middle class.
Right.
And then in South Africa, you have the slums, and they live in tin houses with electricity through, and there's gates everywhere, and so that South Africa is the one that I'm like, oh, okay, wow.
Yeah.
But again, in Poland, we visited the concentration camp, and it's silence. It's silence there, and I think you become more humbled too.
That's right. Yes, and you realize how small and how big you are at the same time. How profound life is. Yeah, and that it was part of your training that brought you to this place, that gave you, that opened the door for this opportunity.
Yeah, I love to, I think we came to New York one time to get a new show program or something in Toronto, and our cities too have problems, and
of course,
Denver has been horrible with their homeless, but we can't take for granted the training that we do and the good environments we have in California, where Adam is, and Colorado here. So, it's just, you don't take anything for granted either.
Right. You really do get a healthy perspective on life. Yeah. And I talked to you earlier. We've been in touch, obviously. So I talked to you earlier about, in my book, I mention you, but I don't mention you. I say, I know some Disney princesses, but I talk about the strength that parents kind of develop. And it's like the Disney princess strength, because I say that I have talked to you, and I know some of the schedules that you kept and some of your castmates kept. 3 shows in one day, early rehearsal, packing up, getting out, going to the next city, doing 2 more shows. And you are in line and you look like you just came out of the beauty salon as people are asking for your autograph and photo. And it is, you gain energy because you are aware of that inspiration that you are providing those little girls and boys that come along and want to get their photograph with you in the cast. So tell me about that. Like, how dig do you deep? Like, where does that energy come from, where I'm being called upon to be a hero today and I'm ready? So how does that come?
There are days when you just, you wake up and you don't feel very good, but then you get yourself moving, get yourself to the rink and the arena, and you start practicing, and you remember that, okay, I'm moving my body, like I can do this, and this is what feels good to me. And then you have to remember that once you put on the makeup and the glitter and everything, that this is maybe their only opportunity to see a Disney princess or Disney show or anything like that. So once you kind of hear the audience and hear how they're reacting to the characters, you kind of internally light up. And then once those lights come on you, you're almost a whole nother person, because you have to transform into that character.
Right.
But, I think because we have worked so hard from a young age, that we just kind of continue to work hard, because that's just what we want to give. So through those 3 show days and 2 show days and 1 show day, pack up, leave to the next city to do it all over again. It's just like, okay, just keep moving. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, but we just have to keep going.
And hearing all that appreciation, or hearing like, what can you share with us, like anything that somebody whispered to you in line that just touched your heart? There was just like, you just couldn't believe how lucky you were to be who you are.
Yeah, you see the girls dressed up too, and you
Mm-hmm.
see just they're dancing and they're singing and they're
Mm-hmm.
so excited to see the show. Then they don't know that we're those characters.
Right.
So we're kind of incognito and
Mm-hmm.
secret. And then, maybe you have a friend in the show that has their family members there that are traveled for how long to be there. And so you just want to put on an extra special performance show for them, even though you don't know them.
Right.
So it's kind of like little things like that. You hear somebody in the audience, or you see someone just light up even more when you look at them. I think those are the little things that, you know, add to your wanting to give more.
Now, when you were an amateur, did you love the exhibition, or did you, because I know a lot of skaters that their whole goal is to finish like in the top four, or the top five, whatever the requirements are. Because I'm going to be in the exhibition, I'm going to do this. Because back in the day, there was only in the exhibition could you use music with words.
Right.
So yeah, so you could like get that "I'm really needing you" or that whatever song out there. Now the rules have changed and there's lyrics in the music. But were you one of those people that were like, "I'm in it. I love shows. Like I more of a show than," because I do know some competitive skaters that just show up with jeans and a t-shirt and they do like skate back and forth and do a few triples and they can't wait to get out of there. They do not like shows. So what kind of skater were you?
I think, that's how we got into skating was
Mm-hmm.
because there was a great park district that did shows, annual shows, Christmas shows.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom loved it. We loved it.
Mm-hmm.
We loved the
Mm-hmm.
costumes and everything that went with it. But the more competitive I got, the less I think I wanted to do them because,
Mm-hmm.
our exhibitions were do your short program, do your long program. What's the criticism you're going to get from your coach?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to tell you what? Like, what does your dress look like? So I think our exhibitions were focused work.
Yeah.
And then we had the random shows that were exciting, but it got you out of your shell. So it was a little uncomfortable to me anyways.
Yeah.
But I loved it. But I remember my first, I think just after I won in junior, Jill Trenery did one of my first exhibition programs that I could start doing for shows. It was to A Moment Like This by Leona Lewis. I remember it. And, I felt like I had to live up to those expectations. And I loved the music, but once that jump came on, I was like, oh no, I have to do the jump.
Okay.
And then the lights came on, and then you were like, okay, I don't know how to skate in the spotlights and things like that. So I think if people do more now with skating with the lights, I think it'll be beneficial to the competitors.
Right. Now, when I saw you, you have the long braid, like it's obviously a wig that you're wearing. How do you manage to skate? Because you're doing a lot of jumps in your program with all of the extras. You have to get used to it?
We started skating with short skirts, like the less fabric you have on, the lighter it is, the better for the triples and everything. So then when they added long ice dance skirts to me and a wig, I was like, whoa, my center of balance is all off. But it took time, and I did get used to it to do the triple toes and double axels. But it was hard. It was hard. And I think, over time it got easier, but also the little kids don't know you're doing those triple jumps either. So they just want to see you land your jump and look pretty sometimes, which is hard.
And I think for us, when I was in the audience looking at you and Morgan, because Morgan was in the show that I saw with the two of you, and her sister is Mariah
Bell.
Yes. So I we're all like a family, we're all related via electricity somehow, because Adam is helping with her coaching, and she and Adam were training together when I was going out to California to watch some of the training. So and then seeing Morgan in the dressing room, brought me like a VIP backstage. So I got to see the underbelly of Disney, which was so cool for me. But I got to be in the audience as people were coming in. And I got to see like those kids that meant so much to them, to be able to see that cast and practicing the songs and all of those things. So, did you, when you were younger, when you were competing, did you think that you would be creating this huge family? Or because, you had Todd and you had Piper skating, was that skating car crowded enough?
I think with my mom's mentality was just everyone, come on, come. So the bigger the family, the better. But Todd had friends. We had friends. We had friends from internationals. We had friends from all over the world. We had
Your mom
Adam.
hosted a lot of skaters, right? Your mom hosted a lot of skaters, yeah.
From all over. I think she even has Michael Brigina at one point. Everyone's coming. The Australian boys have been here. We started with the Slovenian boy, and the Swedish girl who is like my mom's another daughter, and then Alexe Bieldi, who was a German skater who, lived here, and I think when most of us were even out of the house, so he was the only one. But I think we reach out to you because we have new moms. Jody Flatt was like a second mom. Piper has her Canadian mom in Canada. We have Paul's mom, Deborah. And so I think, we just, the more support from each other, the better. And I think that's how we all kind of connect.
Yes. Well, your mom and I were fast friends, and it's roommates on the road when you and Adam would cross, or Piper and Adam would cross at competitions. And I do remember a story I shared with you about how your mom was she was also a nurse. Your dad's a doctor, and your mom was a professional nurse, and she jumped into medical performance when Adam smashed with Patrick at Skate Canada, and watched him all night for a concussion, and calmed my nerves. And it's so important for skaters' parents to reach out to each other, and because we're not competing against each other. It's the really only support that understands that perspective of, international travel, the enormous costs of skating, when a slight injury, or the nervousness of one of your kids in PT or something like that, waiting for those results. So we can empathize in a completely authentic way. So I truly encourage a lot of parents to reach out and get to know each other, because not only are you meeting, a lifelong friend, you are meeting, I have two new daughters, you and Piper. So I am so grateful for skating for things like that, that it has expanded my reach as a mom, and like Valentina. Valentina, I call her Valerie, but she's my daughter as well. And Mickey Ando, she's a mom, but she's still my little girl. I met her when she was 18, so she will be that girl with the little ponytails as long as I can remember. But they're my international girls. But I do think that there's an aspect of skating that people don't see, because I do remember watching, Michael Weiss and Todd Eldridge on television, and then a few years later being at a Grand Prix and thinking, this is it? On TV it looks so fancy, but it's not that fancy. Yeah. Even the Olympics. I mean, now the Olympics are fantastic, but for some reason, I just thought there'd be a lot of, I don't know, that what you see on television when it's brought to a small, it just seems like real. I feel like when I see it on television, it's like superhuman, but when you're there, you realize how ordinary. They're just ordinary people. Yeah. So I think that is,
we were so excited to see everyone at the Olympics, and we saw more people at the skating rink than we had in a long time. So we were excited to be at those events, and see Kiefer Hubble, who we haven't seen in a while,
Yes.
and you know, an old skater, and then see you and your family. But because the events were kind of spaced out with, you know, super early or mornings or super late, it kind of left that in between time where you're like, okay, what do I do? Because all the events were
over at
and then
noon,
you guys
right?
were over there,
Yeah.
and we were like, okay, we'll just go hang out, I guess, somewhere. But it was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It is nice. Now, what are you doing right now? Well, during this interim, are you waiting for the show to call back, or what are you doing?
I was kind of waiting, but you know, things kind of kept getting pushed further and further back, and there was no set date. So I've been back in school.
Tell me more. Tell me more. I love that.
Yeah. So because there's no learn to skate here going on at the rink, so there's no coaching that I can really do unless, you know, I drive a little further, and then it kind of gets a little, okay, what's going to go on? But so instead I took a public speaking and a psychology class this summer. And then right now I'm in 4. So I'm basically full time with like an environmental science and business law and a Colorado history and a microeconomics for right now. So
that's fabulous.
6 years of tour, and then now I'm going back to school.
No, I think that's fabulous because you are making the most. You know, I talk to other skaters, and I think because you're used to that critical analysis all the time, you are used, you know, you're in that lemonade process. Like you really turn a situation and, you know, try and find the most positive way to reframe it. And I feel like part of these skills of resiliency and that grit, instead of waiting for things, you know, because I hear this all the time. I hear people say, I can't wait for things to get back to normal. And I'm thinking, what to do? Wait, why would you ever, like, I don't want things to be like they were in 2016. I like the technology and the things that I've learned in those 4 years. So I don't want to move back. I want to make better. So I think that what you're doing is you are really optimizing your time. You know, when somebody, like if you had a sore leg or something like that, you would change your toe jumps to edge jumps. You know, when you would optimize as many points as possible, or if you had variations, your choreographer, your coach would say, you know, Alexe, you got to optimize what you can do. Like put your arms over your head, or put your one arm behind your back, or do crazy spiral, you know, variations to optimize, right?
And adapt.
And I think that, do you agree that those adaptation skills and those transformation skills, that you learn to optimize the time that you have or what you've got, right? Instead of crying over what you don't have.
Yeah, I think if I didn't do anything during this time, I would drive myself crazy. So, and at the beginning, you couldn't really get a new job, or you couldn't, the rinks were still closed. And then when they were open, it was in minimum capacity and things like that. So not that I don't want to ever, you know, coach or anything. It's just kind of more difficult than it is right now. So with that other time, I went to school. And you it's hard.
Yes. Everything, you know what? It requires practice. You know, things become easy once we put in practice hours. You know, when you first got on the ice, it was really hard to do crossovers. Are you rotate to the right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The normal.
So we don't say normal and abnormal. We say common and uncommon.
Or I turn counterclockwise. Clockwise. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm teasing you because that's like the new, like, that's, they rotate.
I jump to the left.
Yeah.
Not the right.
Like you should.
Yeah.
When you would get a clockwise turner on the ice, I know, like, that's where a lot of accidents happen, you know, because their corners and everything are changed, and when somebody's coming at you, that's where a lot of collisions happen. So, so we want
non-dominant side.
Yes.
But the dancer side, that's the dancer side.
Yes. No, when you had an opportunity to work with like some of the best choreographers in the world, David Wilson, Lori Nichols, Kat in Colorado, So what did you learn from them that helped you apply that to learn choreography? Because did you have to like also do other parts? Did you have to learn choreography like quickly? Because didn't you have to move shows at some times?
Yeah. So at the first year, I learned the first main Frozen show, all Frozen, in 3 months. And then, but I had to be put in because Becky wasn't there yet. So I had to learn it like right off the bat. Wow. And then until she could come because she was finishing up something. And then, then Morgan and I flipped and jumped back and forth between, we call them D27 and D34 at the time, for another 4 weeks. So we were learning the same show, but in a smaller segment.
Okay.
With new choreography from that show, as well as the new choreography we learned from Frozen.
Wow.
And then the following year, we had to I went back and forth between 3 shows. Mm-hmm. Which was fun because it was, kept it interesting. I didn't know where it was going to end up and things like that. But then, as you're building choreography here with new show programs, new short programs, new long programs, I did a short program from Katarina for many years, and that was my comfort. But then to make it to the next level, I had to expand and work with David Wilson and Larry Nickel. And I worked with Piper's coaches, Caroline and Uris Razgalievs, who were completely different than any of the other choreographers who I had taken from. I think I had one by Pasquale and Yuka too. So nice. I kind of had the range, but I liked my comfort of Katarina, and I loved my David Wilson, but his was even different than Lori. And but once you find the right choreographer, they really know you. They know how you move and what arms look good on you. So I think that's important with choreographers, but it is important to pick things up quickly with your choreographers too.
Right.
And with the shows, because you can just be thrown into a random number and be like, okay, you have 10 minutes and we're going to block this. And then you're in tonight and you're like, so you have to make sure that you know the steps and know the counts to it and where they are in the music. And there were some freak out moments, but I didn't run into anyone. Everything looked good, I think, whenever I went in.
Now, when you also sometimes when you're doing competitive skating, things are contoured to your strongest points. But when you're thrown in a show, it doesn't matter if you don't turn well to the right. They're going to make you go that way because that's the way those particular skaters are moving. So would you recommend while skaters are learning, they should be able to reverse, footwork? I'm not saying spin, turns and spins, but at least footwork to be able to not favor.
Even a simple T-stop. It is good to know that you can stop with your left foot in front and with your right foot in front. You'd be surprised that a lot of people can't do that.
Right.
But you have those in shows and in skating. I think in competitive programs, you won't have a simple T-stop, but you might win if you have a basic skills competition.
Right.
But with competitive, we train those programs for almost a full year or 2 years. So that's ingrained in us. Right. Whereas with the show program, thankfully with Frozen, it was Cindy Stewart made it towards my greater strengths. But if I went to a different show and that show had a moving ice palace, then I would have to move around the ice palace.
Right.
Because that thing is how many pounds coming at you on the ice with somebody, remote control driving it. And it's on you to know, okay, the light's on this thing, so you have to go around this way instead. Or in mine, you could go through the set. Right. So if somebody is jumping to the right, clockwise, then they would have to move their pattern in to come through the set to, you just have to adjust and adapt to things.
Right. So I'm hearing some of the best qualities or influences that your takeaways from your trophy life were adaptability, right? Optimization of what you've got and being able to reframe stuff that you don't like or don't want into something that you do like and do want.
Yeah.
Is that close?
Yes, I think so. And have fun with it.
And have fun with it. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that gets lost along the way as well. But you have to find that joy in it.
When you were 2, was it joyful, or were you doing it to please your mom?
Oh, and no, it was all for us. We
Yeah.
like to go out there and get our wiggles out, is what we called it.
Yeah.
And just do laps, 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 laps. Loved it.
Now, do you at the holidays, does everybody skate together now?
No.
No.
Well, I don't remember. Last year I came home early for Christmas, but Piper wasn't able to come home because
That's
she was
right.
training for nationals. So we haven't really been home for the holidays.
That's right.
So this year, but before, we were training for competitions,
Yeah.
or sometimes we didn't even have Thanksgiving off. We had to
Right.
skate in the morning.
It's a Grand Prix, yeah. Oh, when you were doing the show too, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I I don't remember the last time I skated with Kemper or Shelby, my other siblings, but I think Piper and I probably skated together maybe 2 years ago or so at a clinic down in Arizona, but I think that was the last time.
The good thing about skating, though, it's lifelong. So you can
Yes.
do it in, we know some people are doing it in their 80s, that they are still skating. So you have plenty of time to get
Yes.
together and to go around some outdoor rink somewhere and have a good time.
Soon.
So we know where you were about 7 years ago, retiring, 6 years ago, retiring and moving on with a professional career. Let's fast forward 6 years in the future. Where do we find you?
I mean, hopefully finish with school.
Yeah.
And I trying to go into some kind of business. I think that would be good for anything. And then, hopefully involved in the skating world a little bit because I love it. And I think we always need good outside perspectives in the world and knowledge of what we have from what we've learned to pass along. Maybe married. Maybe I hope my friends are all successful in the next 6 years. And, we're not going to be hopefully not stuck in this time of a pandemic and can grow. But
yeah,
I'm trying to make it through this year.
You are so, you know what? It's been such a joy talking to you because you are so like a ray of light. You have been so positive and so inspiring to listen to you, and knowing that you went right at it. You were not having this pandemic. You went right into school in the summer, now full time in the fall. And the nice thing about something like competitive sports is that it's like an octopus. The skating is like the center, and then you have like these 8 tentacles that you can become an agent, or you can become a psychologist, or you can become, a designer, or you can become a choreographer or a coach, or you can, work for a nutrition company. Like there are so many branches that touch skating that I just think it's fabulous that you are ready to be awakened to a new dimension.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it hasn't been easy because it's freaked me out more times than I can see. But at least I'm moving forward. You can't quit. I think that's also what taught us about skating is yes, we fall down and we fall down a lot, but we have to pick ourselves back up and learn the jump or learn the new skill, or we can't stop
and cope during a pandemic.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it.
Yes, you're right.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you so much for visiting with me today. I'm leaving on a high note because you really are a ray of light. I am so glad. I know that we text all the time, but seeing your face is so added to my day today. Yeah, we're Fitbit friends. You would shame me on Fitbit. Please don't be my Fitbit friend.
Don't worry, I've been sitting on the computer all day, so I haven't gotten my steps in today.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. And that's going to wrap it up for us today on the trophy life. And thank you so much, Alexe, for sharing your fabulous amateur and super fabulous professional career with us. And knowing that there's still life during this pandemic, you just have to live it within the limits that you're given, right?
Exactly.
You have those required elements and that, right? You grew up learning them. So you just
Yeah.
kind of have to find the required elements and fill in the gaps there with what you find connect to a passion.
Yeah. You're
Well, thank you
absolutely
so
right.
much. Yes.
Thank you for having me, Kelly.
Okay. See you.
Bye.
Bye, honey.